When talking about communalism and communal violence, what is most striking is that the word community, the religious community, is being used for a very negative phenomenon in the society. As such, communalism should mean that one works for one's community, but here in South Asia, in all the countries, communalism has come to stand for a politics which is based on the identity of people's religion. And this politics is used for political mobilization for their campaigns and for their other retrograde political agenda. The first question which came to my mind was that those people who get killed in the communal violence, are they guilty people or are they innocent people? It is very clear that it is the innocent people who get killed in the communal violence. The second thing which comes to my mind is that those people who do the violence directly or those people who get this violence done, these are the people who are never generally punished for their crimes. So the first observation about communal violence is that this is the biggest violation of the democratic norms of the country. The second point which comes to my mind, till very lately, it was the poor of the community who were the biggest victims of the communal violence. Of course, lately it is not poor or rich, anybody can get killed in the communal violence as such. The question arises, during communal violence also, a large section of society, if it wants, it can protect those who are getting killed. But the society does not do that. On the other hand, it gives a sort of a silent sanction to whatever is going on, the act of killing of the minority people. Now, why does this happen? Here, I like to introduce a word called social common sense. What does social common sense means? Social common sense means a set of understandings, a set of perceptions which people have about general issues. But these things which are regarded as true need not be true. We will try to understand this, that we know that around a century ago, it was a social common sense that women and Dalits are not fit for education. Now, as the times have changed, we know that they are no less or no better than anybody else in the society. So this was a social common sense at that time, which we today realize is not true. Similarly, I will try to explain that the social common sense, the perceptions about the minority, what is the truth behind them and what are the false notions which people carry in their minds about these sections of society. I must inform you that in India, the percentage of Muslims is 13.4. But those people who get killed in the communal riots, those people who get killed in the communal violence, 80% of them are Muslims. Coming to Christians, we know that Christians are 2.3% of the Indian population, but during last 15 or 20 years, they have been subjected to different type of violence, the most ghastly of which was a burning of Pastor Graham Staines in 1999 in Orissa, in the place called Keonjhar in Manoharpur district. As far as Muslims are concerned, the popular notion goes that Muslim kings, they are aggressors. They are the ones who insulted Hindu religion by destroying Hindus' temples. They are the ones who came with sword in one hand and Quran in the other hand, and they spread Islam in this country by force. Similarly, many other things are also talked about from the history of the Muslim kings or from the history of Muslims in this country. I must tell you that in history, Hindu, Muslim and Christian, all type of kings have destroyed and built all type of holy places, including temples, mosques and churches. There were two reasons for destroying the holy places. The first reason was that many of these holy places were great repositories of wealth. There used to be a lot of wealth. What I am saying, there used to be a lot of wealth. Even now, there is a lot of wealth in many holy places, and you all must be knowing about that. Second reason for destruction of holy places was that whenever two kings were fighting. Now tell me, why were the kings fighting with each other? Were they fighting for religious values, or were they fighting for the sake of power and wealth? It is very simple to say that kings were fighting with each other for power and wealth. So whenever two kings were fighting, irrespective of their religion, the victor king used to destroy the holy place of the defeated king, and this was regarded as a symbol of victory for the king who has won the battle. These people also constructed and donated wealth to build the holy places, and the reason for this was that no king could rule without winning over the loyalty of the people, without respecting the faith of the people, and that is the reason as to why the Muslim kings gave lot of donations for Hindu temples. That's why many Hindu kings got the mosques built in the areas where Muslim traders were coming. Now, few points from Mahmud Ghaznavi's travel we should see. When Mahmud Ghaznavi was coming from Ghazna to Somnath, on his way there was a place called Multan. Multan happened to fall in the shortcut while coming to Somnath. So Mahmud Ghaznavi sent a message to the ruler of Multan, Abdul Faddaud, and requested him to give him permission to pass through Multan. Now it is very simple to guess that if temple destruction was the goal of the kings, Abdul Faddaud would have welcomed Mahmud Ghaznavi. He would have probably joined him in this joint venture, but on the contrary, Abdul Faddaud told Mahmud Ghaznavi that he is not welcome, he is not permitted to come to Multan. Now Mahmud Ghaznavi knew that is a shortcut, so he came via Multan despite not getting permission, and when he came to Multan, both these Muslim kings had a battle, and in this battle the Jama Masjid of Multan was destroyed. So please remember friends, what did Mahmud Ghaznavi destroy before destroying a temple? He destroyed a mosque before destroying a temple. Now Mahmud Ghaznavi was succeeded by a person called Masood. Masood sent his army to a city in West Asia to destroy a mosque, so to get the property which was located within the mosque. Same way I must tell you that in Mahmud Ghaznavi's army there were many soldiers and many generals who were Hindus. The Hindu generals of Mahmud Ghaznavi's army were Tilak, Sondhi, Rai, Harjan and Hind. These were the 5 generals in the army of Mahmud Ghaznavi. Now this particular incident gives us the reasons as to why the temples were destroyed. Later on, when British came here and they wanted to pursue the policy of divide and rule, they wanted to create strife, violence between Hindus and Muslims. To pursue their policy of divide and rule, they resorted to the popularization of communal history. Now in communal history, all the events of king's life are seen through the angle of religion, while king considers many factors while undertaking a particular act. But in this communal historiography, which British introduced and part of which is continuing even today, the sole motive of king's action is attributed to religion, which is not true. Dr. Pattabhi Sitaramaiah describes that once Aurangzeb was going from Delhi to Calcutta. On his way, when he was going when Aurangzeb was going from Delhi to Calcutta, in his entourage there were 44 Hindu kings. Are you not surprised that such a king called Aurangzeb, who is regarded as a fanatic, anti-Hindu king, he is accompanied by 44 Hindu kings? Anyway, it comes to Kashi, Banaras, Varanasi, where the queens want to visit the Vishwanath temple. When queens went, 44 queens went. When they returned, one of the queens, the queen of Kutch, was missing. Aurangzeb sent his officer to find out as to what happened. That officer went and saw that queen was sitting in the basement of the temple. Half her clothes were missing and she was crying. The officer asked her, Rani Sahiba, what happened? She narrated that the Mahant of the temple had raped her. When this thing went to Aurangzeb, Aurangzeb summoned the Mahant. He gave him death penalty. But the Hindu kings were still not happy. They said, Sir, this is such a holy temple for us and such a dirty act has taken place there. Now we cannot keep the idol of Lord Vishwanath in this place. So then Aurangzeb, who is regarded as a very fanatic anti-Hindu king, that Aurangzeb said that okay, I will give money from my treasury. You can build another temple. That's how many temples were given donation by the Muslim kings. It is very simple to understand that Muslim kings had to also to give donations to Hindu temples because they cannot just rule on the strength of the sword. Similarly, people are talking about Ayodhya temple, Ram temple. Now my question is this, that how did a political stream come to know that Lord Ram was born precisely at the spot where Maulvi Sahib was giving azan in the Babri Masjid? Question is this, that in Ayodhya even today there are more than 50 temples devoted to Lord Ram, and most of the pujaris of these temples claim that Lord Ram was born precisely at that site. Now how can you then decide which is a real site where the Lord was born? Now this mischief was introduced into Indian history by communal historiography of the British. Ayodhya's Gazette was written by a lady, by a woman called Mrs. A.F. Beveridge. While writing the Gazette of Ayodhya, she described this Babri mosque in detail, and at the end, to create mischief, to create doubt, she put a question mark that probably there was a temple where the mosque is standing. It was deliberately meant to create strife between the communities.